Worldline GoPay Direct SDKs. SDK Flow. In this video, we will bring our client and server SDKs together to demonstrate how to apply them in a real-life scenario. We will showcase the most basic flow most merchants will implement, the standard checkout flow. The demonstration will be done in a hypothetical Android app backed by a .NET Store backend. Here's how the typical checkout flow looks and the roles SDKs have in it. Initializing the server SDK. The backend store application uses the .NET SDK to create a client instance. Checkout session creation. The user initiates a checkout inside the merchant's Android app. Then, the store's backend uses the .NET Server SDK to send a session creation request to the Worldline platform. Next, the Worldline platform creates a session and assigns it the asset URL, client API URL, client session ID and customer ID values, which are then returned to the store's backend. Finally, the store's backend forwards the data to the store's frontend to initialize the session. Initializing the client SDK. The client application uses the Android SDK to create a local online payment SDK object with the received session data, asset URL, client API URL, client session ID, and customer ID. Next, the client application configures the payment context object to finalize the SDK initialization. There, it stores crucial payment information like currency code, country code, and amount. Fetching available payment products. The client application uses the Android SDK to request a list of instances of basic payment product object. The Worldline platform sends back a list of basic payment product objects and account on file objects, if any. The client application displays the supported payment products to the user on the app's front end. The user selects one of the available payment products from the client application. For this demonstration, let's say the user selected a card payment. The client application uses the Android SDK to request the chosen product's details from the Worldline platform. Next, the Worldline platform sends back the details of the chosen payment product. Based on that, the client application displays the payment product details in payment form on the app's checkout page. Validating payment details. When the user enters their payment information, the client application uses the Android SDK to save the filled-in information fields in a payment request instance. After the payment request is configured, the client application uses the Android SDK to supply the values for the payment product fields. The client application uses the Android SDK to perform validation on the payment request. Doing that validates both the field values and the entire payment request. If any of the fields fail validation, the Android SDK returns an error message and renders it on the application frontend. Submitting the payment. The user submits the payment after all payment fields have passed validation. The client application uses the Android SDK to encrypt the payment request and returns an encrypted request. The client application collects the encrypted customer input, the selected payment product ID, the amount, and the currency code. It sends this information to the store's backend as a payment request. The store's backend uses the .NET Server SDK to create a create payment request, including the encrypted customer input, selected payment product, amount, currency, and card-specific payment settings. If required, the request also includes 3D secure configuration, such as the return URL and authentication settings. The backend then sends the payment request to the Worldline platform. Our platform decrypts the encrypted customer input and routes the payment for processing. If configured, the bank initiates 3D secure authentication. Once the payment is processed, our platform returns the payment status to the store's backend. Finally, the store's backend sends the payment result back to the client application. The client application displays a success message to the user on the front end. To get started with Worldline's SDKs, download them from our GitHub repository. For more detailed information on our SDKs, please consult our official documentation.